People are confused as to what's going on in the markets these days, but I can tell you one thing. Bitcoin at 80K in November last year looked like the mummy Brandon Frazier, and Bitcoin at 80K today looks like today's Brandon Frazier. On days like these, where it feels like we're in a bear market and nothing's looking up, it's best to be like Jeffrey Allen from the Beast Games and not look at Bitcoin's price for a while.
Your family and friends, what did you miss most about being aware of what's going on?
I love to take in information, and, it's just nice to know kind of what's going on, or, I think one thing that really stuck out to me was hey, what's the price of Bitcoin?
People are getting lulled to sleep and they're selling their Bitcoin without understanding what's really happening. We're in the midst of a global monetary reset, and gold is sniffing it out as it crossed $3,000 for the first time and hit a total market cap value of $20 trillion. Like my friend Larry Lepard says, nothing says sovereign debt crisis like gold sniffing out all-time highs. Was this Larry in the club last night? The game is up globally, and nations everywhere are having to face the crisis head on. So with Bitcoin going sideways, people are looking at Bitcoin's price as it's priced in dollars, but not looking at everything priced in Bitcoin.
It's going to happen. Sure. Yeah. I mean, people want a prediction. Sure. 250,000 by the end of this year. But
end of 2025.
Yeah. But what's really going on is, we should really be not comparing it to the dollar anymore, because the dollar is, all fiat currencies are going to fall against Bitcoin. They continue to fall against Bitcoin.
Today, I'm going to do a deep dive on the big changes that are happening in the system. Changes that don't happen overnight, but change everything over the long term. Today, we're going to go through some analysis about what would happen if you bought the dips during these bear markets, if you bought the all-time high, and the crazy numbers that ensued if you just hodl versus selling. The numbers are insane. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. All right, what's happening in the economy right now? Well, for starters, we're detoxing away from unsustainable government spending.
When you say that when we're in a period of detox, you used that word on CNBC last week, is that a euphemism for recession?
Not at all. It doesn't have to be, because it'll depend on how quickly the baton gets handed off. Our goal is to have a smooth transition. But I tell you, Sarah, the easy thing for us to have done would have been to come in and just keep this massive spending level going. And it's unsustainable. But could we have kept it going for a year, 2 years, maybe even 4? Maybe, but you're risking a financial calamity.
People are blaming these stock market sell-offs to Doge and the Trump administration and tariffs, and they're taking this narrative way too far.
Sarah, what I like to emphasize, I emphasized it yesterday to the business leaders, I want to emphasize it to your viewers. Let's remember, the E in Doge is efficiency. It's not elimination, it's not extinction. We are trying to make the government do better for the American people and right-size it. And I don't think that there is anyone who is happy with the bundle of services that they get from the federal government. So you're sitting in Singapore. I met with some leaders from Singapore yesterday, and Singaporeans love their government. They think that it does good things for them, and they spend about 18% of GDP on their government. If we were to balance the budget, we'd be at 18% of GDP. So why can't we have the government do a better job for the American people at a better price?
Honestly, that statement from Scott Bessent isn't that controversial, and it's not that novel of an idea. The people who first recommended the government spending cuts were Bill Clinton in his administration in 2000 and Obama in his second term.
Everyone knows that getting rid of the deficit will require some tough decisions. And that includes cutting back on billions of dollars in programs that a lot of people care about. But what should be easy is getting rid of the pointless waste and stupid spending that doesn't benefit anybody. Waste we should be getting rid of even if we didn't have a deficit. Sure, some of these cuts aren't that big, but no amount of waste is acceptable. Not when it's your money. Not at a time when so many Americans are already cutting back. Just as families are living within their means, government should too. Did you know the federal government pays for a website devoted to a folk music ensemble made up of forest rangers? They're called the Fiddlin' Foresters. I'll put their music on my iPod, but I'm not paying for their website. And there are hundreds of similar sites that we should consolidate or just get rid of. By the way, you're not only paying for websites no one needs, you're paying for thousands of buildings all across the country no one uses. For the last decade, the government's owned a massive and completely empty warehouse in the middle of Brooklyn, for example. Now, the government hadn't been able to sell this building and others like it because of red tape and Washington politics that held things up for years. But we're finally cutting through all that and plan to get rid of these buildings in the months ahead. We need to step up our game. We need to go after every dime. We need to make government work for you. That's why, starting today, I've asked the Vice President to lead a renewed effort to hunt down misspent tax dollars in every agency and department of this government.
This isn't AI. This is a real clip. We're right-sizing government spending, and this is causing disruption in the markets. The S&P 500 is 10% off of all-time highs. Microsoft, 19% off all-time highs. Apple, 19% off all-time highs. Bitcoin, 27% off all-time highs. Trump coin, 86% off all-time highs. Fartcoin, 91% off all-time highs. And gold being the only one that's unscathed right now, as gold is reaching and surpassing all-time highs. Gold bulls are celebrating with gold being up 13% year to date, and Bitcoiners are in the background screaming, "Check the scoreboard. Check the scoreboard." I'm not actually mad about gold's adoption, and I'm happy for all of my gold bugs and gold friends out there. Because one thing that this signals is that the world is ready to move back towards sound money. And we know that Bitcoin is the most sound money of them all. Gold fails against Bitcoin in every measure other than age, like it not being counterfeited, like it being easy to store, like it being easy to verify, like you being able to do transactions with it. People look at things in the short term and say things like Bitcoin isn't a hedge against inflation or the stock market. But Bloomberg analyst Eric Balchunas has it right when he says that Bitcoin is a hedge against global money printing. But an even bigger idea than this, Bitcoin is the transformation of capital itself.
It is the most powerful force in the world right now. It's growing nearly 60%. It's become the eighth largest asset in the world. It's about to become the largest asset in the world in the next 48 months. What is it? It's all of the smart money in the world running from risk, running from the past toward the future, from something less secure to something more secure. And they're doing it in the most visible way with their capital. This is a map of the wealth distribution in the world, about $900 trillion. If you break it into uses, half of it is just a store of value. We're long-term, we're preserving our capital for the long term. We just want to keep our money. The other half are assets held for utility. I want to do something with the asset. If you drill into the 450 trillion, you realize the problem is that long-term capital is being dissipated and decimated by fires, by floods, by famines, by tariffs, by wars, by competition, by rust, by obsolescence, by torts, by traffic, you name it, right? What's that cost? That costs $10 trillion a year. There's people go, well, what is Bitcoin's use case? The use case is to not suffer $10 trillion a year of damage from entropy, from inflation, from chaos, from the future. Bitcoin's an asset without the financial risk of a currency, a bond, a stock, and it doesn't have the physical risk of real estate and property. And we're stripping away the counterparty risk to everything. And so we're moving away from risk. And what that means is that as the word spreads that there's an opportunity to keep your money without taking risk, long-term capital is being merged into the Bitcoin network. The greatest digital transformation of the 21st century, it isn't the transformation of music. It isn't the transformation of your photos, your communications, your Facebook friends, or educational videos, although each of those things made a $1 trillion company. The greatest digital transformation is the transformation of capital. So it's the transformation of 450 trillion. What's it worth? It's worth half of everything.
Before we go any further, let's recognize our sponsor. When it comes to unlocking liquidity in your Bitcoin without selling your Bitcoin, there's no better place to go than the leaders in Bitcoin-backed loans, which is Ledn. They've been the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans since 2018 and have issued over 9 billion loans to over 40,000 customers. The process is simple. If you want $5,000 in your local currency like dollars or some other currency, then you post $10,000 worth of Bitcoin collateral. The average time to get approved for a loan and loan in your account is less than 24 hours. Ledn is the first digital asset lender to do proof of reserves, and they've never lost a single cent or sat of customer dollars. The average time to get your account funded is just 18 hours. Apply for a loan today by going to learn.ledn.io/borrow. That's learn.ledn.io/borrow. Our second sponsor helps you to protect your generational wealth the right way, and that's the Bitcoin way. Members of their team will walk you through 100% self-custody, helping you to remove your Bitcoin from exchanges privately, safely, securely, and confidently. Remove all counterparty risk and get your Bitcoin off exchanges. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation with their team that'll walk you through exactly how to do this at thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. That's thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. So in times like these, when Bitcoin is chopping sideways, we have the ability to react based on our feelings, or we have the ability to respond based upon data and history of what's happened in the past. One tweet thread that can really help you do this is a tweet thread from my guy Isaiah Douglas. Bitcoin's current drawdown from all-time highs at about 109K to about 80K today is just about 30%. So Isaiah looked at all of the 30% or more drawdowns and did some analysis for us. Let's check it out. Bitcoin has seen massive drawdowns in the past. This is nothing new. The volatility of Bitcoin is a feature, not a bug. When you look at the drawdowns in Bitcoin, you realize that we have flash crashes and we have prolonged sideways or downwards actions. Bitcoin drawdowns can last from 1 month to several years. Given the scenario we're in where global governments have no other choice but printing more money, I don't foresee a several-year prolonged period of this drawdown. But stranger things have happened. What's crazy is that if you would have just bought the top at each one of these different periods, your returns would have gone from about 16% to over 2,000%. What if you would have bought the dip? Well, if you would have bought the dip on one of these 30% or more drawdowns, well, your returns would have gone from 141% to over 4,000%. I always love a good deep dive, so give my guy Zay or ID Financial on Twitter a follow. But the reality is, people get shaken out of trades and into short-term behavior because of the manipulation of the money itself. As prices and the overall money supply is debased and manipulated, people are forced into making short-term decisions when their future is uncertain. Saif Dean says it pretty well in this clip right here.
Ultimately, the moral problem is rooted, in my opinion, in money. Once money is devalued, once money is being destroyed, then people find it very hard to provide for their future. And therefore, they discount the future more and they behave in much more destructive ways. So I think as El Salvador stacks more Bitcoin, I think everybody in the country, from the president down to the pupusa stand, they're going to become more future-oriented. They're going to become more peaceful, more civilized. And I believe, it's a pretty sustainable improvement, and I hope it continues.
And that's your opportunity. Feelings are meant to be felt, not followed, especially in investing. You need to understand the big picture. You need to know what's true and what isn't. And from a pure math standpoint, Jurrien Timmer from Fidelity's research says that Bitcoin is by far and away the best risk-adjusted returning asset that you can put your money into. I mean, look at the top right of this chart. Bitcoin stands alone, and not just for its return-like properties, but for its monetary and sovereignty properties as well. You get not only number go-up technology, but freedom go-up technology. The trade is pretty simple. If you believe like I believe, and you want to join hundreds of people from all across the country down in Dallas, Texas, from April 3rd through April 6th, then I suggest that you buy a ticket to the BitBlockBoom conference. We're less than a month out, about 2 weeks out, and it's going to be an event where you get to hear from some of your favorite speakers like Guy Swan, Parker Lewis, Marty Bent, Bob Burnett, and me. You'll get access to side events like how do I buy my first Bitcoin? How do I mine Bitcoin at home? And you get to meet Bitcoiners in real life to make a human connection to this digital network, which is one of my favorite things about Bitcoin. You'll get to meet me and some of your other favorite people in Bitcoin at the Saturday casino night. Get $100 off your all-inclusive ticket by going to bitblockboom.com and entering the promo code BBB25. That's bitblockboom.com and entering the promo code BBB25. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.